Welcome back to the official podcast home of the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. I'm Ben Dubose, news editor with the AMP publications team. AMP, of course, is the shorthand acronym for the association. And as far as the publications, we've got three distinct brands and outlets. That's Coatings Pro Magazine, Materials Performance Magazine, and Corrosion Journal. All are housed within our publications group. As far as AMP, the big story for us is that we recently wrapped up the 2026 AMP Annual Conference and Expo. Held in late March in Houston, it was a record-setting show with more than 6,300 attendees and over 350 exhibitors, including 72 exhibitors that were brand new and also 13 new sponsors. Houston is home to one of AMP's global headquarters, so we were absolutely thrilled to be able to welcome so many people to our backyard. And then as far as AMP publications, one of the brand new offerings for us at this year's conference was our AMP Media Studio. It was basically a recording studio inside the larger AMP booth at the exhibit hall. And so what we did there, we brought in and interviewed a handful of leaders within both the association as well as the broader industries and markets that we serve. Topics of discussion included highlights of the show, industry trends, feedback from the market, as well as a few random things that are unique to each person's background. So throughout the month of April, what we're doing here on this channel is playing back those one-on-one exclusive interviews that we taped from the show. We may also use some of those quotes in future articles within our print publications or on the websites, so please stay tuned for that. But the first step is publishing the interviews and letting you all take a listen, and so that's what we're doing right now. Let's roll the tape. Ben Dubose, AMP Media, joined by Sarah Olthof, Senior Technical Manager at AMP. We're recapping the recently completed 2026 AMP Annual Conference and Expo. Sarah, thank you for joining me. Why don't we start by giving a little bit of background on your role? What is it that you do today with AMP, and what is it that you did before becoming a full-time staff member with AMP that led you to this position?
Sure. Yeah, so my role at AMP, I'm the Senior Manager for Technical Programs. So I lead our technical engagement team. Technical engagement team supports the standards committees, the technical committees, and the research program within AMP. So we have kind of a broad reach. Prior to joining AMP staff, I was an active AMP member. I was most recently, before joining staff, I was on the standards program committee. So my industry role, for about 26 years, managed a testing laboratory for protective coatings that was owned by a civil engineering firm. So in addition to my responsibilities managing the laboratory, I also coordinated all of the corrosion protection services across the firm. So coordinated our coatings inspectors, a little bit of CP work, and a lot of coatings design type work.
So how does your role tie in with the annual conference? What was the week like for you, and what are you each year trying to get out of that week?
Sure. So annual conference week is incredibly busy for my team. Across AMP, we have 27 standards committees, as well as nearly 50 technical communities of interest. So my team supports all of those committee meetings. Clearly, it's a small team, only 3 of us, so we don't get to every one of those meetings, but we try to catch as many as possible, especially the technical exchanges hosted by our technical communities of interest. So we're in the meetings just kind of listening for what new ideas are coming up, where there are gaps, where AMP could provide benefit, where there are needs, where there are new projects starting. And, kind of keeping an ear open for ways that additional support from AMP staff is needed to be able to progress those things forward. So it's a very busy week, very exciting week.
Yeah, absolutely. I could tell because it was tough to nail down at times to talk about the highlights. From your perspective, what did you take out of those meetings that you sat in on, the conversations that you were a part of during the week? Obviously, speaking broadly here, but were there any common themes or highlights that you took out of the week?
Yeah, there's some really interesting discussion happening around, kind of digital transition, right? How our standards are going to need to look in the future, what sort of new needs they're going to be just based around the volume of data that's collected, given, some of the remote inspection techniques and some of the advanced sensors that are now available. And then looking at, corrosion modeling and digital twins and all of those types of, they're not new for sure. They've been around for several years now, but, we're still in the process of navigating, what that looks like as far as, data structures and standards and, how a digital universe looks, kind of going from all of the arm's length visual type inspections that are so core to our industry and kind of looking toward the future when, those are, I think they're never going to go away, right? But they're slowly being minimized. So I heard a lot of conversation around things like that. I also heard some interesting discussions around sustainability topics. So, not the most popular topic in the U.S. right now, but still an important piece of our industry and every industry, really. So I thought there was some interesting work going on there. Saw some great technical exchanges. I don't know how many of our listeners have a chance to get involved with the group that works with the refineries, but they have an amazing technical discussion that lasts all day during conference, one day every year. They also meet again in the fall, but during our annual conference, they met from 8 in the morning and they, kind of cut off time at 5 in the afternoon for these great discussions around kind of lessons learned and problems, shared problems across their industry. So that was one of the highlights for me to be able to observe pieces of that and kind of see the work that they do. We saw some great stuff in our technical exchange around defense and also maritime. There's some exciting stuff going on there. We got some great participation in those areas as well. So many highlights. It's hard to pick and choose.
So what happens from here? All these committees, these groups got together in Houston, and there's obviously 13 months from now, another event in Columbus. What happens between now and then, the rest of the year, in terms of taking the discussions from that week in Houston and expanding on them, putting them into practice? What are the next steps in the weeks and months ahead?
Sure. So all of our standards committees have a slate of projects that they're working on. So, when they have that face-to-face time at annual conference, they're kind of giving a highlight and overview on where each of those projects stand. But throughout the year, they're meeting on a regular basis, each of those project teams. So we have over 400 active standards. Now, not every one of those is in some type of creation stage or revision stage, but many of them are. So throughout the year, these committees are working hard on coming to a consensus on the appropriate technical language, finalizing those documents and working with staff to get those published. So our standards committees are busy throughout the year. Our technical communities of interest also host technical exchanges throughout the year. So often during annual conference, some new topics will pop up or some things of interest, and they'll use that to build on, what they're doing throughout the year with continuing those discussions. So there's discussions happening online in their workspaces as well as in virtual technical exchanges that are scheduled sporadically throughout the year, depending on each community's needs.
For anyone listening that might want to get more involved with technical activities or standards, what are the best ways that they can do that?
Yeah, right on the main AMP website there in the top bar navigation, there's a standards and technical, I believe it's labeled. And if you click into that submenu, you can see ways to get information about the standards program and then also a list of those technical committees. Within each technical committee, there's several different technical communities of interest, and that's where If you click through any of those technical communities of interest, you can join. You don't have to be an AMP member to join our committees. So the standards committees and the technical communities of interest are both open to anyone who's interested. So you don't have to have an AMP membership to join. Of course, we very strongly encourage people to join AMP. There's so many wonderful benefits of membership, but there's reasons that some people who are not members want to participate in our committees, and they're more than welcome. So all you have to do is create a profile on the AMP website in order to join any of those technical communities of interest, and then you can see those online discussions. You can get announcements about when virtual meetings are happening, or some of them also meet in person outside of the annual conference. Those announcements are all on those workspaces for the technical communities of interest.
Very good to know. She is Sarah Olthof, Senior Technical Manager specializing in corrosion protection at AMP. I'm Ben Dubose, News Editor, AMP Media. Thanks for listening. All right, that will do it for this interview from the 2026 AMP Annual Conference and Expo. But please stay tuned throughout the month of April, because we've got quite a few of these that we're going to be debuting on our AMP and Coatings Pro podcast channels. Our hope is that the information and insights from these conversations will ultimately benefit our readers, association members, and the industry as a whole. And beyond the podcast channels, don't forget to check out our print publications, our social media pages, and our websites for Coatings Pro Magazine, Materials Performance Magazine, and Corrosion Journal. All of those brands are housed within our AMP Publications family, and we'll have lots of great exclusive content from the show coming out in the days and weeks ahead. Just stick with us and we'll have more to come. Anyway, that will do it for today. On behalf of our entire editorial team, I'm Ben Dubose, News Editor for the AMP Publications Group. We appreciate you so much for checking out this interview, and please come back soon for more exclusive coverage of the 2026 AMP Annual Conference and Expo.